Hey guys, welcome to thinkdigit.com, and today we have with us the Nexus 5. Yes, this is Google's flagship phone, which is made by LG. And this is a complete review that we're going to give of the smartphone. Let's start with the design and build with getting the specifications out of the way first. The Nexus 5 has a 5-inch display. It's a full HD display. Under the hood, it has the Snapdragon 800 chipset with a quad-core CPU clocked at 2.3 GHz. It has 2 GB of RAM. The rear of the smartphone has an 8 megapixel camera and the front has a 1.3 megapixel camera for video chatting. The entire package is powered by a 2300 mAh battery and it comes in two variants, 16 GB built-in storage and 32 GB built-in storage. There is no option for expansion, and since it has a unibody design, you cannot open the back to access the battery. Coming to the design of the smartphone, this is where we think that Google and LG have played it really safe. From the face, you can see this looks like any other Android smartphone out there. The 5-inch display, earpiece, camera, navigation buttons, quite clean and black. Coming to the rear, it has a plastic finish, but it has a rubberized thing, so it gives a good grip when you hold it. It has the Nexus engraving. This is very similar to the Nexus 7 second generation that we've seen, and the camera housing is bigger than what we've come to expect from smartphones. Other connectivity options have the volume rocker, headphones jack, power button, and of course the micro USB port. It has two grills out here. Some of you may mistake that for stereo speakers, but it's not. It's just one speaker and the other is the mic. The rear has the camera. Now, overall, the design of the smartphone is plain simple, but it is really good. We have with us last year's Nexus 4 smartphone, and as you can see, the back had a glass finish, and below the glass it had a sort of a textured back which shimmered if you shook it in light, and that was really cool. The disadvantage was that since being glass, it could break with a single drop. Here, however, Google has played it safe. The phone has a nice, good, well-built design, very ergonomic. If you are someone who needs to type a lot of mails, it's very comfortable. It's very light at 130 grams. It is very light, probably one of the lightest 5-inch smartphones out there, though not the thinnest, but it is relatively thin and slim. You can see it is slimmer than last year's Nexus, and it is slightly taller considering the display. Now, the Nexus 5 runs on Android 4.4 KitKat straight out of the box, and even though the update is available for the Nexus 4, there are a certain few visual cues on the smartphone that make it look different from the Nexus 4. To start with, the wallpaper flows right into the bottom panel where the three capacitive buttons are housed. If you remember, in the older operating system, it rests on a black bar. The wallpaper doesn't flow through. The black bar, however, does come when you enter any particular app, be it messaging, phone calls, whatever. The black bar does appear out here. On the home screen, however, it flows into the wallpaper. This is just a very beautiful visual cue. Another thing that is exclusive to the Nexus 5 is the ability to talk to the phone. We've seen this on the Moto X, but you can't do it when the phone is off. So if the phone is off, okay Google, nothing's going to happen. Even if it's on the lock screen, okay Google, nothing's going to happen. If you unlock the device, you have Google on the bar, or if you are on the Google Now page, only then will it happen. Okay Google, you can speak your commands to Google and it will obey. Wow, and it's going to of course go into Google search of what I just said. Okay Google, what's the temperature in New Delhi? Okay Google, what's the temperature in Bangalore?
It's 28 degrees in Bangalore right now.
Okay Google, what's the traffic condition in New Delhi? Okay, so it's going to take you to... Basically, you can start talking to the Nexus 5 with the OK Google voice command, but the deal is that you have to either be on the home screen or on the Google Now page. Another visual cue of Android is you can see the apps listing is very, very clean. You don't have the apps and widgets button on the top corner. You have all the apps listed very simply, very nice. The icons are much bigger than they are on the Nexus 4, even with the KitKat update. And we really like this because if you are someone who's a little older and the small icons really are buggy in case you just want to find what you want on your phone, the bigger icons really make it a lot easier. You will also notice that there is no widgets option out here. Now, to add widgets and home screens, let's talk about the home screens first. As you can notice, there are just two home screens. I can add a third home screen if I want by adding widgets and wallpapers. If I want to add a widget, I just long press the widgets button, and I'm taken to a list of all the widgets that are there for me. I can add it to a new home screen, and I have a third home screen as well. So just like we've seen on a lot of other Android phones that implement a skin by reducing the number of default home screens, we really appreciated that there are just two. I personally am one who just uses one home screen on my phone, and I'm really happy that I can reduce the number of blank home screens. Another feature is when you long press on the display, you have access to either the wallpapers, widgets, or the settings. This is just very nice and easily customizable, and visually it's much more comfortable to use than the older Android operating systems. Now, overall, you can say that Android 4.4 KitKat is very plain. It's really just simple. There's nothing extraordinary out here. If you compare it to the likes of what TouchWiz has to offer or what HTC Sense or Sony brings with its smartphones, that's true. If you enjoy customization options, a lot of other integrations, then those skins overlaying the operating system may be something that you'd want to look at. If you, however, want a pure Android experience, how Android was meant to be used, be very smooth, fluid, then of course KitKat is a great option for you on the Nexus 5. So starting with the benchmark scores, the smartphone doesn't score as highly as other flagship devices. Now the internals of the Nexus 5 are the same as the LG G2. It, however, still scores less in the benchmark scores. This is probably because Google doesn't really care about customizing its phones to get you the best out of benchmark scores, or probably the benchmarks aren't updated to run to their fullest speed on KitKat. However, in its real world performance, the smartphone is really smooth, it's really fluid. So let's just walk you through some of its performance features. Browsing on the internet is of course a treat. The keyboard is stock Android. They have replaced the position of the exclamation mark and comma, which was originally on the left side of the keyboard. For me, this is personally a little frustrating because I'm so used to muscle memory on the Android keyboard, being very used to 4.3, that it took me a little time to get used to this. Nonetheless, typing on the keyboard, browsing the internet, doing virtually anything on the smartphone in its performance is absolutely great. Even if you can notice, there used to be a certain amount of lag while scrolling. It's still there. It's very slight, but it's such a great improvement overall in the performance. Even while multitasking, you can see we have quite a few number of apps open. The phone runs very smoothly. The 1080p display is also great. Now, on paper, the IPS plus HD display is the same that we've seen on the LG G2. In real world performance, however, the display is slightly dimmer than what we've seen on the G2. It's not bad by any means. Its pixel density is higher than the G2 because of its size. But when it comes to absolutely reading text, the phone is just great. You could zoom in completely. There you don't see any grains, there's no pixelation. It's just great. Even if you're reading any books on Google Books, it's just a treat to consume content on the phone. So as you can see, there are a few visual changes to the dialer, to the contacts list. You could just search for them and they pop up. It's really good and very comfortable to use in its performance. Another enhancement to the performance is you can now type the name of an app, and if it's there on your phone, it will just pop up. So you could just search for the app directly rather than going into your apps lister. Coming to its gaming performance, we're just going to show you a bit of Real Racing 3 and Dead Trigger 2, which are some of the games we really love playing here. The phone's performance is really great. Now, the only drawback to the smartphone, of course, is the fact that its speakers are slightly softer than we'd like. We've seen a lot of other smartphones available in the market that have better audio coming out of the stereo speakers available. But overall, as you can see, the performance of the game is really good. The display is vibrant enough for great viewing angles. The game runs smoothly. The hardware is great. One thing that we did notice is that there are some heating issues with the phone. We've been playing games, running some benchmarks and using it, and in about half an hour of really power hungry use, the phone became quite hot. Now some running and gunning action with Dead Trigger. Since the device has a 5-inch display, there is more real estate for you to put your thumbs on and play a game when compared to the slightly smaller phones. Of course, considering the previous Nexus was 4.7 inches, the real estate isn't really that great, but its presence is appreciated nonetheless. Take a look at how really crisp the display is. Like we've said before, it isn't the best display in its class. We have the LG G2, which has a mind-blowing display, but this display is great nonetheless.
Talk about a problem? I sell ice for a living.
Ooh, that's a rough business to be in right now. I mean, that is really... that's unfortunate.
My lady.
This is awkward. Not you're awkward, but just because I'm awkward. You're gorgeous. Wait, what?
Coming to the battery life of the smartphone, it has a 2300 mAh battery, which is a really small capacity when compared to what the competition has to offer. But in terms of its life, in our continuous video playback test, it lasted for about 5 hours, which is almost at par at what the competition does. We've seen devices from LG and Samsung bringing higher capacity batteries, which do last a little bit longer. But then again, the battery life of a smartphone is subjective to the brightness levels, which features you keep on and off, such as background sync and all. Coming to the camera of the smartphone, this is the only place where we think the Nexus 5 is really disappointing. The interface is the same as it was on the last generation. So if you're someone who likes a very clean interface, and if you're someone who doesn't like to, tinker too much with what the smartphone has to offer, well, then this is a great interface for you. If you are someone who likes a lot more control with what you are doing, then you would prefer the interface of other smartphones. Coming to the performance of the camera, it is probably the weakest point. The camera does do a good job, especially when the environment is controlled and you do have access to the lighting and the shot is steady. In low lit conditions, it still, however, is a bit of a trouble to use. It isn't the best out there. The Xperia Z1, in our opinion, has the best camera on the high-end smartphone today. We do wish LG and Google do remove an algorithm that helps improve the quality of the camera on the smartphone. Overall, we'd like to say that the Nexus 5 is a great vanilla Android experience. The biggest advantage of the Nexus 5 is that it is the least expensive flagship smartphone available in the market where the competition is concerned. It's a real bang for your buck device, and Google will support the Nexus 5 for the next 18 months at least, with all major operating system updates. Having said that, if you are someone who wants a great display, you'd probably consider the LG G2. If you want a great camera, you'd probably consider the Sony Xperia Z1. If the interface and multitasking and doing more with your phone is something you like, you'd probably go for the Samsung Galaxy S4. So what we're trying to tell you is, if a vanilla Android experience, the least expensive, great hardware experience is what you're looking for, then the Nexus 5 is a smartphone for you. If you like the other bangs and whistles that come with high-end devices, then you can look at the competition.